we're taking a look at Vikings. This is my absolute favorite historical TV show on right now. Overall, I'd say that this show does an excellent job of creating effective drama without compromising too much of Viking history. Overall, I'd say that this show does an excellent job of creating effective drama without compromising too much of Viking history. Anyway, after the main character Jaguar and his mates have killed a tapir, they head back to their village. A village which looks way too primitive for a Mayan settlement. I mean, seriously, it's smack bang in the middle of the jungle. The land has not been cultivated whatsoever. It's just a bunch of flimsy stick huts surrounded by trees. Why haven't they been cleared? If this is a Mayan village, then where are their crops of corn and maize? Why aren't they growing squash and beans?
Alright, so I think here it's fairly obvious that this isn't a Mayan settlement. If you have a look at Mayan settlements, the houses don't look like that at all. And I can see the point he's making, but then I don't know why he's making it, because he's basically saying it's clearly not a Mayan settlement. And he's completely right, it's not a Mayan settlement, but what's the issue here? These people aren't Mayan, so why should that be an issue? Now, if you have a look at the Mayan settlements of this time, they're more built in limestone, especially this era, which I think is representing the post-classical rather than the classical Mayan era, but I'll get into that a bit later. But it's completely the wrong lifestyle for the Mayans as well. They're clearly hunter-gatherers because they kill a tapir and they take it back. If you look at the village layout as well, it's more a communal setting. It's more, the central fireplace and lots of different huts surrounding it. Now, that's very much the sign of a more hunter-gatherer rather than the Mayans, who were, they were more metropolitan society, especially at this point in time.
Maybe they're like a primitive non-Mayan tribe or something like that. Yeah, maybe that excuse could have worked if we didn't see them speaking bloody Mayan. Later in the movie, we see them talking to other Mayans without any problem.
Now, on this point, I'm going to actually disagree with history buffs, because I think that they would be able to understand each other. The reason being that all the Mayan languages which are spoken in the Yucatan Peninsula, where this film is set and which you can see on the map in green, they all had a common ancestor called Proto-Mayan. And the same way that a Dutchman might be able to understand quite a lot of German because they both came from the same root, or a Spanish or a Spaniard or someone from Portugal might be able to understand quite a lot of the other's language because they both came from Latin. Because of this reason, I think that the people in the film would be able to understand each other as well, because everyone in this region spoke a different dialect, even rather than a different language of Mayan, which all had this common ancestor. So for that reason, I don't think history buffs' argument that they wouldn't be able to understand each other would hold up, and it especially wouldn't hold up if he was saying they were Mayan before and criticizing them for historical inaccuracy. Now, I definitely think that Jaguar and his tribe are not Mayans, or perhaps that they are descendants of people who used to be Mayans, in the classical period, but then in the Maya collapse that they've reverted to this different lifestyle. But then I think that they would, especially if they lived in the Yucatan region, which pretty much all evidence points to them being there, that they would be able to understand each other due to this common ancestor of Mayan.
The only thing I feel is missing is that none of them seem to be carrying shields. So the Mayan warriors attack the village without any clear motive other than to collect the villagers for human sacrifices. The only question I have is, why bother with this lot? I mean, surely you want to go after other warriors or highborn nobles from a rival kingdom if you wanted your sacrifices to have that much more meaning to the gods. But that's not the case here. Everyone in the village, minus the children, are taken as captives, and they all head back.
Could the fact that they don't have shields indicate that they are a raiding party? Because on a trip like this, it doesn't seem likely that they would particularly want a long fight. This time, the Mayans in the post-classical era were very much influenced by other groups like the Toltecs and the Aztecs, which I'm sure you'll all have heard of before. And these groups were a lot more violent than the classic Maya. He goes on later in the video to go on about how the scale of the sacrifices is unrealistic, and the type of sacrifice as well. But I think myself and history buffs disagree on the time period which this is set in, because I rather think this is the case of an individual Mayan city-state's collapse in the post-classical era, rather than the Maya collapse which occurred at the end of the classical Maya era. But anyway, moving on. With that fact, he also points out, why would they take just any old, Amazonian tribesman or whatever, instead of princes from neighboring cities? And it seems like a good point, but it's again, if you understand the time and you understand that they're looking at the Aztecs and the Toltecs for inspiration, then you see a shift in culture. And the Aztecs and the Toltecs pretty much just went and invaded, and they invaded not just to get slaves and to get sacrificial, people to sacrifice on the altar to the gods, but they also invaded to keep the land. Now, in Peoples of the Americas, it's written that Maya people took prisoners of war from their raids on non-Mayan villages and sacrificed these people. And he also goes on to write that the people they took were of the lowest socioeconomic level. So the people they sacrificed weren't princes, they weren't kings, that kind of thing. They were usually children or slaves or prisoners of war, which is again this whole idea of it's better to get someone alive to take someone captive than to kill them.
Does she have smallpox? It looks like smallpox, but no. This movie cannot be that bloody stupid. As you can clearly see, it's exactly the sodding same. But my question is, how the hell can she and her mum have smallpox if the Spanish haven't even arrived yet? I think the vast majority of us have taken enough basic history to recognize how absolutely bullshit this scene is. Here she is, clear as day, with a smallpox virus without any of the Mayans having ever laid their eyes on a single white man. This leads me to two conclusions. Either this is one of the worst historical inaccuracies I've ever seen in a movie, or Mel Gibson did a really shit job of visually communicating to the audience what the disease actually was. Really? You're trying to tell me that neither of these twits have ever seen a Mayan city before? Guys, you need to get out more. I don't understand this, because in the late classic period, there were literally hundreds of these cities all over the place. I don't understand this, because in the late classic period, no kingdom after the Maya collapse would ever grow to this size again, or build pyramids such as these. And the failing crops and the famine are all clues that Apocalypto is showing the Maya collapse that took place around the year 900. So I want to know is, why is the priest sacrificing his victims by extracting the heart? Mayans wouldn't do this until the post-classic period. I can't take it anymore. This film goes beyond being historically inaccurate. This doesn't make a lick of sense. How can Apocalypto be both about the classic Maya collapse and show the conquistadors arriving 600 years later? When the classic Maya period officially ended in the year 900, Spain was part of an Islamic caliphate. It didn't even exist as a country, and yet I am looking at what I can only describe as time-traveling conquistadors. Well, that about wraps it up. My name is Nick Hodges.